Hi, welcome to my channel, Voice of Aaria. In these tough times that this world is facing, a lot of us are having to stay home these days. So here I am with another one of my stories that you can lose yourself into and forget all your worries for some time. This one is called Beyond the Bubbling Brook, and I'm going to narrate it in two parts. Both parts are within this video itself. So go find a cozy corner of your home, put on your earphones, close your eyes, and just relax. Here it goes. Beyond the Bubbling Brook, Part 1. Today was going to be a long day for Mrs. Iyer, like every other day. She woke up and glanced out of the window as the sun began to sprinkle its morning colors along the horizon. She wished she could stay in bed and watch, but there was no time. She got out of bed and cleaned up the whole house. After taking a bath, she went into the kitchen and prepared a cup of strong masala chai for herself to prepare her for the long day. She switched on the radio and intently listened to the news while sipping on her tea. It wasn't going to rain today. She opened her refrigerator, quickly took out the vegetables she had earlier harvested from her garden, and began the tedious task of chopping them up. It took her hours to prepare all the vegetable curries, pulses, chapatis, and rice. As she started putting everything into different lunch boxes, she started humming along with the radio. Kishore Kumar's songs were her favorite. After packing everything, she quickly got ready to leave the house. Walking to the guest house with all the lunch boxes slowed her down, but she didn't mind the leisurely walk as it was a beautiful breezy day. She reached the officer's guest house and gave all the lunch boxes to the manager. Like every day, she told him to be very careful while delivering the boxes because she had made mango pickle for Mr. Jha and a little payasam for Mr. Gautam and rice papadam for everyone else. So the boxes shouldn't be mixed up. The manager smiled, gave her the payment for last month, and wished her a good day. She left with a smile and proceeded to the nearby nursery for some seeds. She wanted to plant some chili in her garden to try her hand at some chili pickle this time. It was good to give the officers some variety in their daily meals. After all, they all were away from their homes. She returned home and had her lunch. She only had an hour before she had to do everything all over again for the officers' dinner. She went into her garden and started watering all her plants and vegetable crops. In the middle of it, she bent down to inspect the leaves of a brinjal plant. It seemed to be fine. As she looked up, she again spotted that little girl looking at her from the hill across the brook on the other side of her garden. She often used to find that little girl staring at her whenever she went out into her garden to water her plants. She stood up and waved at her. The little girl waved back and kept looking in her direction intently. As usual, her mother came up from behind, picked her up in her arms, asked her to wave a bye to Mrs. Iyer, and left. Mrs. Iyer watched as they left, the little girl waving at her. Today the mother was wearing fancy clothes, a rich peacock blue silk sari with a golden touch. Maybe tonight they again had one of those parties in their compound where one of the apartment owners' wives played host and organized the dinner and games. The couples would sway with the peppy music and laughter would be heard till late into the night. How happy and free these women seemed. They could wear beautiful new saris. Mrs. Iyer hadn't bought a new sari since her husband passed away ages ago. Even if she were to buy a new one, where would she wear it? She had no parties to go to. In fact, apart from this house and its garden, she hadn't been to other people's houses for years. These women were so talented. Some could play the piano, some could paint, some could embroider. She had no talents, no hobbies. In fact, she didn't even have any free time in which she could pursue some hobby. She didn't even have any children. Her husband has passed away in a road accident only a year after their marriage. Since then, her life had become reduced to a constant struggle. It seemed so monotonous, so meaningless. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was the manager's assistant from the guest house, who had come to pick up the packed dinners of the officers that Mrs. Iyer had just finished packing. She had been so lost in her reverie of thoughts that she forgot to pack her homemade mango pickle for Mr. Jha this time. She realized it later when she started having her dinner and cursed herself. How could she do this? Maybe she didn't even deserve a life like those women if she couldn't even do this little job properly. She went to the window to close it before going to bed. As expected, across the brook, the lights were twinkling, the music flowing, and the laughter was ringing around happily in the compound of the apartment complex. She thought she saw the shadow of a woman looking in her direction from the edge of the hill away from the party, but she couldn't tell in the dark. More laughter came from the party. Maybe someone had cracked a joke. Ah, what a life! Mrs. Iyer sighed and went off to sleep. After all, tomorrow was a long day, as usual. Part 2. Today was going to be a long day for Mrs. Kumar, so she wanted to make good use of the little time she had to herself while her daughter was away at school and husband away at work. The cleaning lady had just left after wrapping up the cleaning and cooking. She went into her bedroom and opened her closet to choose her sari for this afternoon's ceremony. She needed something that would work for the evening party in the apartment complex as well. She went through all her new saris and finally settled on the peacock blue Banarasi one. She laid it out on the bed for later. Humming her favorite Kishore Kumar song, she went to her balcony and sat down with her sketchbook and pencil. Sketching was her favorite hobby, even though she didn't know if she was very good at it. Her husband always found her sketches lovely. Then again, usually her subject was their daughter. So today, Mrs. Kumar wanted to sketch something different. She looked around for inspiration. It was a beautiful, breezy day. The trees were swaying gracefully. She could hear the faint bubbling of the brook beyond the apartment complex. Her eyes were, once again, automatically drawn towards the quaint old house beyond the brook. It had a sloping red tile roof and faded yellow walls, with flowery vines climbing up their sides. There were trees of all kinds surrounding it: coconut and betel nut palms, banana fronds, and papaya trees, with a thick grove of mango trees in the backdrop. There was even a little kitchen garden beside the house with neat rows of different vegetable plants crisscrossing it. Even after all these years, no matter how many times she looked at it, that house always charmed her. So she started drawing. Her daughter was also drawn to this house and would go and stare at it whenever she could. Like mother, like daughter. Maybe she could teach her to draw this house as well. Give her child's curiosity and an artistic outlet and see how she responds to it. She had already introduced her to reading very short stories. A diverse set of creative activities would be good for her young brain. She looked at the wall clock. It was time to go pick her up from the bus stop. She quickly locked the main door and walked towards the gulmohar tree outside the apartment complex towards the road. The flaming orange flowers had covered the whole tree and the surrounding sidewalk. It served as a beautiful landing for when the school bus arrived and her daughter jumped out of it onto the orange sidewalk. She only had to ask her daughter once about how her day had been, and the little one launched into a full monologue consisting of numbers and letters, teachers and students, swings and games, and whatnot. Mrs. Kumar listened to her daughter with a smile as the little girl struggled to eat and narrate her version of the incidents of her school day at the same time. Mrs. Kumar quickly changed her daughter's clothes and then herself got ready in her peacock blue sari to leave for her friend's baby shower. Suddenly the doorbell rang. It was the cleaning lady at the door. She had forgotten her wallet in the kitchen. She asked Mrs. Kumar if she had some medicine as she had developed a bad headache in the past hour. Mrs. Kumar gave her the medicine and sent her own car and driver with the cleaning lady to drop her home because of her bad health. As the cleaning lady left, Mrs. Kumar realized that her daughter wasn't around. She must have snuck out of the door when the cleaning lady had arrived. She went outside and, as expected, found her little one staring at the beautiful old house across the brook below. The lady who lived in that house was outside, tending to her vegetable garden. Mrs. Kumar picked up her daughter in her arms and asked her to wave a bye to that lady. It wasn't safe for little kids to be roaming around the edge of the hill as the sudden drop into the brook from the hillside was only a few steps away. They came back home and Mrs. Kumar asked her daughter if she would like to draw the old house. The kid got really excited about the idea and got out her drawing book and color pencils and started drawing. She sat with her daughter and dealt with her unending questions about the colors of various elements in her drawing while she waited for her driver to return. Mrs. Kumar was quite hungry by now as she was supposed to have lunch at her friend's baby shower. She wondered what a peaceful life that lady from the old house must have. She didn't seem to have any children or family to attend to. Maybe they were in different cities. How free must she be to indulge in her hobbies? She clearly seemed so passionate about gardening. From what Mrs. Kumar had heard about that lady, she had even turned her passion into her profession by providing home cooked meals to the nearby officer's guest house. She must be so independent, managing her household and finances all on her own, living life on her own terms. Suddenly, the telephone rang. It was her friend calling to complain that the baby shower had almost ended, but Mrs. Kumar had still not shown up. Mrs. Kumar realized that the driver must have got stuck in some problem on the way and wouldn't be able to reach in time for her to catch the baby shower. She apologized profusely to her friend and explained the reason for her sudden cancellation. After ending the call, Mrs. Kumar realized that she would now have to cook something for herself. The food had only been cooked for her daughter today, as dinner was supposed to be had at the evening party. Mrs. Kumar had no choice but to make do with the sandwich that she started preparing for herself. She started wondering, why did she even agree to go to this baby shower? She wasn't even that close to this friend. She had only agreed to go because this friend was the wife of Mr. Kumar's business partner. She was sure that the lady from the old house didn't have to deal with such complications in her life. How delightful it must be to be the master of all your time. On the other hand, most of her own time was distributed amongst her family responsibilities and social obligations. She couldn't even choose her daily attire freely without constantly feeling the judgment of her friends or neighbors at the back of her mind whenever she stepped out of the house. Even when she was inside the house, she was afraid of being judged by the cleaning lady. After all, the cleaning lady also worked at the houses of her neighbors. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was her husband. He freshened up as Mrs. Kumar fed dinner to her daughter. Mrs. Kumar quickly applied her party makeup, and all three of them left for the party. The sound of music and laughter had already started filling up the compound of the apartment complex. As Mrs. Kumar navigated through the sea of rich saris and expensive jewelry, she couldn't help but notice how fake all the smiles were and how superficial all the conversations. Why did they even organize these parties? They seemed to her like a periodic judgment that was collectively passed upon her family and herself. She felt herself slowly drifting away from the party and towards the edge of the hill. She concentrated on the sound of that brook flowing underneath and the hazy outline of the quaint old house in the faint moonlight. Slowly, the music and laughter of the party faded away for her, and all she could think of was how it would be like to live in that beautiful house beyond the bubbling brook, away from the eyes of the world. So, this was my story, Beyond the Bubbling Brook. What did you think of the two women in the story? Did you find them similar in any way? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comment section. And if you liked this video, do like it and share it with as many as you can. And for more such relaxing videos of songs and stories in my voice, do subscribe to my channel. It would really encourage me a lot. Thank you and see you again soon. Stay home, stay safe.